So hopefully by now the substitute has given you the two handouts that you're going to need for today. The information that we're going to be covering over the next, well, for this video is exponents, evaluating expressions involving exponents. Now, in 5th grade, you learned most of this information that you're going to see for this first handout. However, when we get to page 43, you're going to use what you know about evaluating exponents, and you're actually going to determine a particular exponent that you may not have seen before. So if you'll turn to your table of contents right now and label page 42 and 43 with the title of exponents. And again, you're going to need to pause this video as you need to. So now is probably a time where you need to pause your video and label your table of contents. Okay, now that you have your table of contents labeled, if you will turn to your next blank 2-page spread, and you're going to label page 42. Let me get to mine. If you will, label page 42, the title, and the I can statement. Page 42, the title is exponents, and the I can statement is our goal for today is I can evaluate expressions with exponents. Pause your video and label your page. So when you look at the word evaluate, you see a base word, value. So the word evaluate means to give the value of or to solve. Again, most of this should be a review from 5th grade. The handout that the substitute gave you has a few notes at the top, and then it has a table at the bottom. So we're going to fill in the notes now. An exponent refers to the number of times a base is multiplied by itself. If you'll pause your video and fill in your notes. In a few moments, when you watch your Edpuzzle, you're going to hear a song that will help you remember that an exponent refers to the number of times a base is multiplied by itself, not by the exponent, but by itself. Make sure that you have filled in your notes and that you are pausing this video as we go through it as needed. Okay, so if you will look, we're going to complete the table with these columns. In the first column, we're going to be given the number that includes the base and the exponent. The second column, we're going to write in the base. The next column, we're going to write the exponent. The fourth column, we're going to give the expanded notation. That simply means, what does that tell us? What does the power and exponent, or the base and exponent, mean to multiply? And then finally, the standard notation is where you actually do the multiplication. A couple of these we will do together, and then some of these you will do on your own. So if you look at the first row, we see 2 to the 3rd power. Another way of saying that is 2 cubed. So I want you to write cubed. You may need to pause your video. Anytime you see an exponent of 3, you could say 3rd power, or another way of stating that is, in this case, what is 2 cubed? All right, so given the fact that we're looking at 2 to the 3rd power, 2 is the base and 3 is the exponent. And you probably learned in the 5th grade that the job of the exponent is to tell us the number of times we multiply the base times itself. So if our exponent is 3 and our base is 2, that means 2 times 2 times 2. And when you do the multiplying, 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8. The standard notation is 8. Okay, let's look at our next row. Our next number that we're looking at is 3 to the 2nd power, which can also be said as 3 squared. Pause your video and write squared. So anytime you see the exponent of 2, you can also say squared. 3 would be our base. 2 is our exponent. Now remember, the job of the exponent is to tell me how many times I multiply that base. So if my exponent is 2, then that means 3 times itself, or 3 times 3. Notice when I wrote that, this time I wrote a dot as my multiplication sign instead of the X. That is another way to show multiplication. And then 3 times 3 is 9. Okay? I want you to do the next 2 rows. Pause the video and complete the next 2 rows by yourself. Okay, you should have written 5 as the base, 4 as the exponent, and then you should have multiplied 5 times 5 is 25, 5 times 5 is 25, and then you should have multiplied 25 times 25, which is 625. If you did not get 625, go back and find your mistake. For the next row, the base is 6, the exponent is 2, so I could say 6 to the second power or 6 squared, which means to multiply 6 2 times, or 6 times itself, which is 36. Go back and check your answer, and if you miss that, of course you need to correct it. Okay, I want you to pause your video and do the next 2 rows. Now you're going to check your work for these rows. If you'll notice, 8 is being multiplied 3 times, so that means my base is 8, my exponent is 3. We would write that as 8 cubed, or 8 to the third power. And when you did your multiplying, you should have noticed or said that 8 times 8 is 64, and then when you multiply 64 times 8, you should have gotten 512. If you did not get 512, you need to go back and find your mistake. The next row, you should have written 3 to the third power, or 3 cubed, which means to multiply 3 times 3 times 3. Well, 3 times 3 is 9, and then 9 times 3 is 27. I'm sure all of this is a review of what you learned in 5th grade. The last column is 10 to the third power, where your base is 10, your exponent is 3, and that means to multiply 10 times itself 3 times, which is 1,000. If your base is 10, there is a shortcut that you can use to evaluate that exponent. If the exponent's 3, notice that there are 3 zeros in my answer. This is with a base of 10. If I had 10 to the 4th power, that would be a 1 with 4 zeros. If I had 10 to the 5th power, that would be a 1 with 5 zeros. Okay, so this finishes a quick review of what you learned last year with bases and exponents. If you will take your handout, fold, and glue it or tape it down onto page 42. And I had not planned to do 2 separate videos, but I see my time limit is running out. So this video that you just watched will complete page 42 of your notebook. And when you finish watching this video and you're ready, then you can watch the next video, which will be completing interactive notebook page 43. So right now fold, and you may have to turn this so that it will fit, but I want you to tape or glue this onto page 42, and then whenever you are ready, you will watch the next video and you will be completing another page in your notebook, which will be page 43.